Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hardcover Hooligans, where we will go through the Dunes and Dunes Knots of Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah. Danylo, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you feel if you inadvertently killed, I don't know, a couple billion people?
You know, I feel like I wouldn't... This might sound bad.
Uh-oh.
I'd say, I don't think it's my fault.
It doesn't... Okay.
Honestly, it'd break me psychologically that it'd, push me the other end. There's no possible way I could have done this.
Right. Yeah, it's not
a funny answer, but
it's a you and our new best friend might share a couple things in common, and there's a couple things I have weird questions about that I'm unsure of, so I'm excited to get into it. Anyway,
yeah,
for this we read the entirety of Dune Messiah because it's really short. So don't be on the lookout for part 2 because it's never coming. Dune Messiah, published in 1969. The second book in the Dune series. Lots of people, I have learned, consider the first 3 novels as you read them all together. We're not reading the third one here. We're just
not right now anyway.
Yeah, not right now. And this is the book where I think the inversions of the themes set up in the first book come from. I think that's safe to say.
Yes, it's the full story of Paul Muad'Dib Atreides.
Yeah.
Which is why it felt like the first one ended and you're like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
And okay. This book has a lot, not more characters, actually significantly fewer characters, but they all have a thing. Everybody in this book has they've got their thing, you know? And
it's high school, you know.
Yeah, kind of. They've got the cool... You ever been in high school and there's a group of cool guys and a big fish man and they're plotting to kill you? I mean, I've been there. Danylo, you have read this book before.
That's big. Let's put a big fat asterisk on that.
Oh, explain.
I read it and remembered absolutely nothing from it.
Okay, but you've laid eyes upon the page.
Technically, the words have at some point made their way into my brain electricity.
Did anything jump out at you as being oh, I remember this after you read it, or truly zero?
I remember being confused about when the nuclear bomb thing goes off.
Yeah.
Being huh? And that also again happened this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think for some reason I thought he died during that. So I totally misremembered.
Oh.
What happened. Yeah. So, I mean, effectively, this is my first time reading it.
All right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool. It is also my first time reading it. All right. So, listen, this book, it's going to be weird to... This book is really short. I was surprised by how short this book is. And I feel a lot, it really moves. Books do not need to be 900 pages long. That's just... I'm torn because I agree, but I don't know if it's just the way he writes things that move fast to where it really feels like things are just happening and you're like, blah, you know? Yeah.
Which I found very disorienting. And I think probably was one of the reasons I don't remember a lot from before. I mean, you know, every book you sort of have to learn how to read it.
Yeah.
And I also don't know, is that a flaw with this book? Is it not? I guess I found it more difficult to shift into the mode of reading this style than maybe you did, Mac. Because did you find it all? Were you just was it smooth sailing the whole time for you?
Yeah. There was never, I was not, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and claim I understood it all, but there was never a moment where I was truly lost. I feel like I got it. And I really enjoyed it, because I felt like it was a lot more. Okay. So I guess we could start here. Mm-hmm. Every person I've ever talked to who has read at least these first two Dune novels have been like, I would just read the first one. Like, they give you that sort of like condescending, like passive aggressive, like, I don't know if you can hang with Frank Herbert's energy. I think this book is a lot more, I think the opposite. I think if you read the first Dune book, this is a lot easier to digest than the first one was.
I mean, I would say, I think I am in the same boat with you. I like this one more, like I just did. I think it's whatever, issues I had with it, maybe we can get into with, like, I think it's specifically choices in terms of, like, writing style and, like, Herbert's own. It's interesting because the last book felt more like Frank Herbert could lean on the tropes and ideas of, like, standard sci-fi stuff to, like, make it more, get his weirdness more out of the book and, like, stabilize it a bit.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas this book really feels like all Frank Herbert weirdness for better, yes, and I think also for worse sometimes as well. Which I think is what people come for these later books, like. There's, like, just batshit crazy stuff.
Yeah. And the batshit crazy stuff that's in this book, I really liked.
Me too.
This is a little inside baseball listener, but we've been talking about different formats, or ways to discuss the books we're going to talk about. Just very quickly, I am going to give a really wide overview of the plot. And then we can just sort of jump around, I think, because it's going to be hard to, I don't know. There's a lot going on, but at the same time, there's really just a few hyper important parts. Okay, I just accidentally closed it. Okay, I got it. Okay, so there's been a time jump, 12 years, right? Am I correct in that? It's been 12 years.
Yep.
Paul, he accidentally did his big jihad, and a shit ton of people all across the known space. They never really give mention to it. The universe, they call it, but yeah. I don't know if it's actually the universe. Anyway, a bunch of people die, and he has created, like, he has really riled up the Fremen into religious fervor. The book begins. There is a 3-pronged conspiracy to bring down Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, led by Mother Mohiam of the Bene Gesserit, and 2 new cool freaks. Saitel, who is a face dancer of the Tile Laksu, which is a new organization. They actually were mentioned in the previous book by Baron Harkonnen in literally a sentence, but they play a bigger role here. And Edric, yeah, right?
It's Edric, yeah.
Who is a member of the Spacing Guild, who Herbert has now decided are fish people.
Well, I think we have never seen a guild navigator. This is like a specific kind of, yeah. Okay. So I think in the last book we saw, like,
those 2 guys.
The guys are just like the bureaucrats who, like, do the business stuff. Like, I think there's, like, different levels where, like, the navigators who, like, steer the ships are, like, the crazy fish people.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did not. I was just like, okay, I guess they're fish people now. I was totally on board with him just retconning it. I wasn't even going to question it.
You know how fish people, like, need their like business people to, like, do all their business for them, you know?
It's kind of like a Petco. You can't buy the fish without going through the business person first, you know?
You can't go to a Petco and then you're like, what, is this a person working here? I thought it was all fish. No, the person sells us the fish because they can't get out the tanks by themselves.
And Edric actually can't. He's literally, like, he's not a fish man in the way that, like, Mr. Krabs can, like, walk around. He's, like, in a big tank. Yeah, we buried
the lead on that. He's not an actual fish man.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he's like a big orange fish in a tank, and he, like, gets wheeled around.
Yeah, he's which is pretty funny, you know?
Yes, it is pretty funny. He's a funny character, I think, intentionally. I love the scenes he's in. He's kind of a big, weird freak. And the only reason he's involved in the conspiracy at all is that he also has the power of prescience and world-building lore moment here. if you can see into the future, you cannot see the actions of another person who can see in the future. It's like Atium, unfortunately.
Damn it, I was just about to say that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I was on the fence about saying it or not.
I think we take every opportunity we can to relate it to the People's Book, Mistborn. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And he's a fish. We call him a fish person because he's mutated because he spends all this time in the spice gas, and he has to be in a spice gas tank, or else if he doesn't breathe spice air, he'll die.
Yeah.
Which is why he's in a tank, and why he looks like a fish.
Okay, so Mother Mohiam recruits Princess Irulan to their cause. Mother Mohiam really wants Paul to impregnate Irulan. And Irulan has been feeding Paul's wife, Chani, contraceptives so that they can't have a kid. Because, I don't know, if they have a kid, it'll be crazy powerful.
And Princess Irulan's the official...
Right.
Paul's official wife, and Chani is the concubine. Not unlike how Leto and Jessica in the last book had the similar relationship.
Yeah. Okay, so the Tleilaxu, we got to talk about them right now, because the next big part that's coming up is directly the Tleilaxu are xenophobic geneticists. Is that right?
Yeah. Or just I think they're just they do genetic experiments, basically biological genetic experiments.
I thought they were specifically also weird eugenicists. Or trying to create the perfect...
Oh, they are xenophobic, you're right.
Yeah, because they... Okay, so the Tleilaxu are just another big organization in the universe. They have created what is called a Gola, which is essentially a zombie. And the Gola that they have created is the corpse and spirit essence of one Duncan Idaho, baby.
He's back, baby.
He's back. And he is also I didn't write this down. He's a certain kind of mentat. He's like a Socrates mentat. I don't remember. They have a name.
Oh yeah, he's a Zen Sunni mentat.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Specifically a mentat for philosophy, not just for computing. And the plan is the Gola has a name, and it's really not subtle. His name is Hate, but it's spelled...
mentally, I pronounced it height.
Oh, really? I was saying Hate, because there's a moment where a character says hate and then spells it, Hayt, and I was like, you did that because it looks like hate. But the Gola's name is Hate, and the conspirators' plan is that the Gola will philosophize Paul Atreides so hard he'll destroy the Empire himself.
They're the only way we can think of undermining him is to make him question himself.
Yep.
And then we find out he's already been doing that.
Yes. And they actually get along really well. and the Gola is a very honest guy.
And spoiler alert, it doesn't work
at all. The opposite, actually, in fact.
It gets them all killed.
Chani ends up getting pregnant because she switches her diet. She switches her diet and starts eating a more traditional Fremen diet. And I guess Princess Irulan is so stupid she didn't think to I don't know how that cancels out the contraceptives, but it does.
It just does.
And she gets pregnant. Paul Atreides gets into contact with a man named Othaim, who is he in the previous book?
I don't think so.
Okay, but he was a death commando, one of the Fedaykin. And he has a Tleilaxu, to use the word that the book uses, is a dwarf. And his name is Bijaz, and he is an incredibly weird part of this book because he's almost like a it feels like he belongs in a fairy tale.
Yeah, a sort of a court jester. He talks weird and has little riddles. Yeah.
And this little guy, Bijaz, tells the Gola. They have this weird way they can communicate. Do you want to explain this, Danylo? There's I don't know what it's called.
Tones and humming and
Yeah.
I don't know. And so the twist is that this Bajaz guy is like there to activate hate, who's like a Manchurian candidate sort of situation.
It's just like that. It's
exactly like that. Which, you know what? I wonder what came first. I think Manchurian Candidate came first. I think it did. Yeah, the novel came out in 1959. But it's the different. It's kind of a spin on it, where one of them's a dwarf and one of them's a zombie.
Yeah. It's kind of like a fun Manchurian Candidate.
It's not a trigger command; it's humming.
Yeah, right. Of course.
Yeah, he like hums. Like, as far as like hate knows, he's like being fully honest with Paul, and like, but the Tleilax sort of like programmed some like sub process in him that like if Bajaz like activates it, and then a certain events happen, like, okay, when Chani dies and Paul says this, then Hate's gonna like spring into action and kill Paul.
Right. Which almost does happen at the end, if not for the power of friendship, an overwhelming power of friendship.
Which was the plan all along, apparently.
Right, of course.
So many of these books is like something, like twist happens, and then someone's like, and that was the plan all along.
I know, because this is not... I'm trying to speed through the summary because I want to talk about, like, spend most of this time talking about like the big themes and stuff of this book. But Danylo, you hit on an interesting point. I don't understand, just talking about writing at large, I feel like we're going to get way off. I think that's okay to get way off topic of talking about this book really at all. I don't understand why in genre fiction that is like every character ever is like the smartest like guy ever, and it's so fucking frustrating that like the way that listen, I like this book a lot, but Frank Herbert still, as like a writer, I am not sure it's good, because there's still the problem. I think it might happen more in this book, or maybe I just was noticing it more because it's shorter, but the thing is still happening where like characters will talk and have a conversation, and then one of them will be like, the example I used in the other one, it was from that forum post. It's like, oh, the clever spider weaving its web of intrigue. Like, I don't understand what it is with science fiction and fantasy books where we can't just like read between any lines at all. Like, there's no opportunity for the reader to be. Is that because like it doesn't take place on our world that they get nervous?
I think part of it, I feel like it could be a two-pronged thing. Like, one, the author has a lot of ideas in their head and is trying to put it all on paper. And honestly, I think a big part of it is just for the author to keep everything straight. And then it just ends up in the final thing. Like, because I can imagine you have the story in your head, and like, it's hard to mentally keep track of, if, oh, this person's planning to do this, I don't know. But also, like, possibly for like readers to just know what's happening, because I mean, it'd be interesting to explore the history of genre fiction, because like it starts as like pulp stuff, and it's only like through its development it becomes more interested in like ideas. And so I think it might just inherit a lot of stuff from being really bad and pulpy on purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, anyway.
I think my highest point of frustration in this book was like being halfway through and being like, literally every chapter is two people in a room talking.
Yeah.
Like, there's there's maybe one chapter where it's, one person doing something and we're seeing them from their perspective. It's always like, this person walked into a room and started talking to this person, and then that's the whole chapter, and then it ends, and then the next chapter is two people talking in a room, and anything that happens like in between chapters, and all the conversations are like about the actual story, which is a crazy way to write.
Yeah, that does happen a lot.
part of the reason, like, I think what we learned in the last book, which is, you know, maybe Frank Herbert isn't great at like writing action or super comfortable with it, which is why he's like, and the sandworms arrive and it's cool, you know,
Yeah.
and that's one sentence.
Yeah.
So he sticks to his strengths, I guess, which is writing dialogue with many, many layers. But that still
right.
gets
Exactly.
grating.
I think that the dialogue is actually really good in this book. Okay, my favorite moment of this entire book comes early in it I don't remember why this happens, and I don't care. Don't write about it. I don't care. Seitel, the face dancer, like goes to some guy's house and they have a conversation about the jihad and the war, and Seitel kills this guy and steals his like granddaughter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment where Seitel, face dancers, they can like change their face and be whoever. So they're both, he's pretending to be a veteran of this jihad talking to this guy, and this guy is talking about like seeing water for the first time on this planet that the jihad, Quizerat, is that what they call themselves? What's Paul's religious like organization called?
I think it's the Kizarat.
Yeah, Kizarat.
Qizarat.
Like on this planet that they conquered, and he's talking about like how he was was baptized in the water of this planet, and even though it made him like incredibly sick, after he went into the water, he came out of the water and saw not just like his life but all of life in a completely different way, and realized like what they had been doing was like wrong and fucked up and they shouldn't have been doing it. And like this is the first time in the book so far, aside from like Paul is always sort of aware that the jihad is bad, where we get like POV from somebody being like, I'm not sure any of this is good and is going to lead anywhere good. And I love that part, because like that conversation was I thought that was so captivating, because they're talking about the stuff I had been looking for in Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I am less interested in like Paul and Shani arguing about kids, or like Hate and Aaliyah like being in love even though she's like 16 and he's an ancient zombie.
I think she's 15.
Well, no, but she's actually 9,000 years old, Danilo. That's what you don't understand.
Oh my god, you keep stealing my jokes. That was screaming my jokes.
Well, isn't that so fucked up? Like, there's so many moments where Frank Herbert in this book with Aaliyah is like, it's almost like she was fucking her own dad.
Yeah, because she's like, she has like 10,000 years of ancient knowledge, but in the body of a 15-year-old. So it's okay, like, actually.
She has all her mom's memories, so she like knows what it was like to have sex with her dad,
which would be fucked up. I think it'd be great if it like actually explored how fucked up that is.
Yeah, but don't.
Instead, like it like sexualizes a teenager. You know,
it does
in a classic like
does.
sci-fi. Herbert just like can't write a woman.
No,
like we talked about this in the last one. We're like, I just seen just women. What are they talking about?
Yeah.
She can't fit into school.
Yeah, I think that's especially apparent here. Like Hate like assaults her, like just kisses her.
It's weird,
and is like, you wanted me to do that, and she's like, yeah, I did. And he's like a creepy zombie man. Like that's not a woman wouldn't
before
react
that. There's
that
a whole chapter where like she's horny and naked and knife fighting, and then
her brother's checking her out.
Oh my god! They all just walk in, and she's just like standing there.
It is fucking
it's
bizarre.
Crazy.
But Frank Herbert's a weird little pervert. So.
I think we said this with Brandon Sanderson, and it's like a George Lucas thing too. It's like these insanely creative people like just don't have a leash or someone to be like, how about no, you know? Do we need this in here? But like you need the crazy naked teenage girl knife fighting in order to have like the the beautiful discussion about being baptized in the waters of another world. Like, it's weird. Like, it weirdly feels two sides of the same coin, and it's so conflicting.
I know, like, it comes from the same mind. Like, you need to, because he's like a weird freak.
Right.
It's just funny. I was thinking about this when it happened, is that this brother and sister have a weird will they won't they incestual relationship, and so do Luke and Leia. And at least, to George Lucas's credit, the second one wasn't on purpose. He didn't know they were related until he wrote the third movie, so there's that. But I guess that's also a part of this, is that the Bene Gesserit are trying to matchmake Paul and Aaliyah so that they can keep the like genetic experiment going to create what? Another guy who's going to ruin everybody's life?
I think they want a Kwisatz Haderach they can control, because Paul was like, you shan't control me. And they're like, oh no, our plans are ruined.
But isn't the whole point of the Kwisatz Haderach is that it's essentially an uncontrollable force of nature, so why would you think you could control it again? Or is that the point?
I don't know. I think they can or want to, but...
So this is where we're talking about Bajaz. He meets his new friend Bajaz, and then Paul walks outside, and then a nuke goes off and it burns out his eyes.
Yeah. Did he like go visit? Like, I was just so confused by like where he was and why and how he got there, and weren't they going to Otham's house or something?
They're going to
well, there's a conspiracy among the Kisserat to like oust him, because they've like run out of planets to jihad, so they're all like bored.
Yeah, the reason Paul goes to see Otham is because Scytale has disguised herself as this girl. The girl from, this is who it is. It's the girl from earlier in the book that he took.
Yeah.
And Paul's like, you gotta go, Scytale's like, I have a message. You have to go see this guy. And Paul knows it's a trap, but he does still go.
Well, in this, I think the second half of this book, like right when Chani gets pregnant, Paul gets like even more depressed than he already is, because like there's like a sense of foreboding, and Paul keeps saying like he knows what's gonna happen and it's bad and it sucks, but like it's what needs to happen, and he's like powerless to stop it. Basically, it's the best situation for him and everyone he cares about, right. So he has to go through with it.
And partly that's because Paul didn't stop the contraceptive, because Paul saw Chani die in childbirth. Yeah. So he's trying to stop that from happening. So he gets his eyes burned out, and then he's even more prescient than before. And he can still like see, except that he can't. It's a little confusing on purpose. Like he knows some guy is wearing like a yellow shirt. I'm unsure if that's because he can see the future, and in the future he's wearing a yellow shirt, and Paul is just like assuming. I don't know if he can really see, and it is like confusing, and it's confusing on purpose. But it's
funny. I imagine how like the Steel Inquisitors see, where like it's a blue, because doesn't he talk about how like it's sort of a blue fading thing?
Yeah, it is like it's kind of like how Daredevil in the Daredevil Netflix show sees stuff. It's like outlines of stuff. Mm-hmm. But so Paul can see. He becomes even more powerful. The Gola, Paul eventually just talks the Gola into stop. He's like, you got to stop being Hayden. You got to be Duncan Idaho again. And he's like, all right. It takes a while, but he does eventually do it.
I mean, I think the Gola stuff is super cool.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it gave Paul much needed like characterization, like giving him something to like struggle with. Like, oh, it's this person he was close to, who was like a mentor and like a father figure, and he died saving him, but now he's back, but not really. And like he knows he's an instrument of his destruction, but like can't help finding, you know, emotional connection where he can, because he's so isolated from being the strongest emperor ever. I thought all that stuff was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's awesome too. It would be better if Duncan Idaho had more than a paragraph of dialogue in the previous book, and we actually like got to know him. But yeah, I like that a lot. I think Hate is an interesting character. All the scenes where he is conflicted about having both like the spirit of Duncan Idaho in him and this new thing called Hate, I think that's really awesome. And those conversations that Paul and him have are really captivating. And at the end, when he becomes Duncan Idaho, that's like a really good earned moment that the book has, and I think delivers on it really well. And I really like Duncan Idaho as a character by the end of this book. I think he's really fun. And now I know why people say, they're like, oh, I love Duncan Idaho, because if you just read the first one, you're like, what? And now it makes more sense.
It's just Jason Momoa and he dies.
Right. Now, having read this, it makes a lot more sense why they'd cast if they are going to make this also a movie, why they cast somebody as like charismatic and fun to watch as Jason Momoa is as this character.
I definitely imagined unconsciously Jason Momoa the whole time.
Oh, me too. And it worked. And it, like, talk about casting, man. I think that fucking nailed it. He's awesome. Hopefully he doesn't kiss a 15-year-old in the movie, but well, I guess we'll see.
I saw some threads on the internet where everyone's like, they've got to age her up.
Yes, they do. Because I guess it's still weird, but I guess it's certainly less weird in the book.
It wouldn't be the first time Jason Momoa played a much older character who's in a book who is supposed to be with someone who's concerned, who's really young but is aged up for the show.
It just he's got the most specific typecasting in all of La La Land. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the book here. Like we said before, Bijan does like that weird like word mind control to Hate. Well, I guess at this point it's to Duncan Idaho to try to get him to kill Paul, and Paul's like,
well, I think it was still Hate, because when it
okay,
yeah,
oh yes, like, it is, because it's right
the
after
process
this.
Is sort of like he is Hate and he knows he is, and then just from talking to Paul, like the Duncan Idaho part like gets stronger and he gets more conflicted about like, I feel this part is real, but also like I know this other part, and then it just keeps like the Duncan Idaho part keeps like getting bigger.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So right after that, he becomes Duncan Idaho again, and you think everything's good.
Well, I mean, what happens? It's this. I think it happens in the course of the climax where Chani dies in childbirth, and that's the trigger for Hate to kill Paul. And then when he tries to kill Paul,
you're totally right.
Like,
you're totally right.
The Duncan Idaho part like jumps into action to not kill Paul, to like do a full takeover.
Yeah.
And like destroy the Hate part, so he becomes full Duncan Idaho in trying to kill Paul.
Right. Yeah. But Chani dies, and she has twins, which Paul didn't know about. And Paul can see through the eyes of his son, which has gotta feel pretty fucked up. And also, Chani is the daughter. Is that part of it? Doesn't he like sense that she's like, he's like, oh, her spirit is still here?
I don't remember that.
Did I make that up? Hang on, maybe it's right on the. Hang on, one moment.
I'll look for it too. Are you thinking of when Scytale offers to make Chani a Gola?
No, I know that happens too, but I swear I thought that. Let me see. I forgot how Bijaz dies.
I did too.
He just
what happens?
Paul's just like, hey, Duncan, can you kill this guy, please? Like, yeah.
I know Chani seems pretty dead.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know why I thought that. Oh wait, hang on. Yeah, you're damn right. I was right. Check this out. Ready?
Yeah.
Paul felt himself in the creche then, with Aaliyah cooing over him. Her hands soothed him. Her face loomed, a giant thing directly over him. She turned him then, and he saw his creche companion, a girl with that bony-ribbed look of strength which came from a desert heritage. She had a full head of tawny red hair. As he stared, she opened her eyes. Those eyes! Chani peered out of her eyes. And the Lady Jessica. She's like, has all the knowledge of those people, too.
Yeah,
she's not like a reborn. That's not what I meant. She's like
got it. Yeah. So yes, the daughter and I think the son too. Like they both like basically what happened to Aaliyah happened to them, where they're like born with full consciousness and all that fun stuff.
Did she drink any poison, or did that just happen because she has full consciousness?
I think it just happens because it's like they're Paul's offspring. They're just super powerful and crazy.
Gotcha. Well, we can leave in that part, I feel like, where we just talked about Bijaz, because I feel like that was pretty funny. But anyway, that's what happens to Bijaz. And then Paul walks...
Well, Sightale comes, so
yeah, I guess.
And is like, Duncan, Idaho, they're like, you've proved that Gola can retain the memory of its past person. And he, like, holds one of the babies hostage, and then Paul like looks through the eyes of his son so he can like grab a knife and stab Sightale in the head, and then that's done.
Yeah, I think he throws it.
They have Duncan kills Bijaz, and
and then so Sightale dies and Bijaz dies, and then Paul's like, all right, that's it for me, and then he walks into the desert.
Yep. The Fremen tradition.
Yeah, because the blind Fremen are left to the desert, and since Paul is blind and a Fremen, he does the same thing to himself. After he makes Aaliyah the empress.
Yep. and he says, "Hey, you know those people that conspired against me? Don't kill them." And Aaliyah's like, "Okay." And then he wanders in the desert. And she's like, "Duncan, go kill those people."
Yeah.
And then so. The guild steersman Edric and the Bene Gesserit mother Mohiam and all that, they're all dead. But Princess Irulan was so distraught by her role in this, she just becomes good, or like becomes on the side of the Atreides.
You know, it's funny. I actually like this because the whole time I don't know if I like this, but I'm happy that. Because in the first book, you're like, all these good things about Paul are written by Princess Irulan, but she fucking hates him. And then at the end of this book, she's like, "Oh, I was actually wrong. I don't know. I don't really know why. It is weird." Yeah. And
she renounces the Bene Gesserit and is like, "I'm going to teach his children for the rest of my life."
She's a real Eliza from Hamilton. From Hamilton. You know, Eliza wasn't real. She's just from Hamilton, the musical.
And the big, my takeaway, like the big triumph and tragedy of this, of Paul, is that he like could see the future, so he did everything perfectly right to like keep supporting the Fremen, but like not being made a god by following Fremen tradition. And he sort of saved Chani from a worse fate and still got children and like eliminated all the Atreides enemies, and like he maneuvered it all perfectly, but he was like depressed the whole time, and it ended up with him having to like sacrifice his vision and his life.
Yeah. And there's also like to think about prescience in this way, like he could only ever see a future in which he could see the future, which meant that whether he was doing it on purpose or not, he was doing everything to keep himself in control of Spice, which allows him to see the future. And if he's in control of Spice, chances are he's still the emperor on this planet, controlling this army of Fremen. So every time he was peering into the future, even if it was good, even if like he was like, "Oh, this is the angle I gotta take," he was still prescient, which meant that he was still in charge of everything and very powerful. So even, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He is that's how thinking about that is how like I have because he's constantly being like, oh, I really gotta stop doing this jihad, but he keeps doing it, and I think it's like he doesn't have a choice. He can't really control it. He just like sees what's going to happen, and he's powerless to stop it.
It's not like he could do something different, because then like if he did, he would have seen, like that would have been what he would have seen, right?
Yeah, which is cool.
Which I think puts the first book into like higher relief, you know?
Yes, I think so, because they talk about this. He talks about this around the table, like they're all there. One of the Kizarat guys and Aaliyah and Chani and Princess Irulan, and I think Chani's there too. And Princess Irulan's like, well, why can't you just see the fucking future, idiot? And he like has this huge bit about, it's this huge like actually kind of it's very technical about something that's impossible monologue about like the ability to see the future. And I thought that was man, a lot of that stuff, I'm like, where was this in the first one? I understand that like characters needed to learn this, but I don't know, man. This is way better than the first book. Like,
if you took like better. Whatever this book is on and like cut out all the dumb like Harkonnen chapters from the last one and like pump more of this stuff in there, like that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I love it when they like, remember, because I was proof listening to the episode, I had said like there's no dissenting voices at all in the first book. There are dissenting voices in this book, and it's really interesting and juicy, like that like that Fremen guy who was this warrior who is like now completely unsure and shaken. I'm really happy that's here, but that other book is 600 fucking pages and there's none of that in it.
I know. Or like Aaliyah being like this religious figurehead, but like
we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, she's like this religious figure. She has her own church and all these like ceremonies she has to do, but like she hates it and doesn't want to do it.
You know who she reminds me of?
Who?
Vin. I mean, she is. She's a reluctant religious figurehead. It's happening again. It can't stop happening.
I mean, Ellen. I mean,
yes.
Hey, Paul's an emperor. Ellen's an emperor.
I know.
Everywhere we turn, all roads lead back to Mistborn.
All
allomantic highways lead back to Mistborn.
Can that be the title of this episode? not about Dune at all.
I think we will lose what few listeners we have if we have this anything to do with Mistborn.
Yeah. So this, like we were just saying, I mean, this book is where a lot of the inversion of I was reading about this last week. Not a not insignificant amount of reviews of this book at the time did not like it, because they're like, where's the action? They're like, where's the or they're like, where's like all the hero stuff? Like the heroes are the bad guys?
Paul's not a hero anymore, huh?
Yeah. And they didn't like, but that's really interesting. Like, I love seeing Paul as this guy. Like, this is my Paul Atreides, baby. I love all that stuff. Him being like a horribly depressed, religious, zealot leader is really interesting.
Yeah, like a puppet of just like the universe. Like, it's very like, that raises the questions of like determinism versus free will. And I think it's an interesting, like, I think Herbert should get more credit for like writing, I think especially in this one, like writing a compelling story with a main character who can see the future.
Yeah.
Because immediately that removes like all tension. And I sort of felt like in the last one that was sort of not done super well, but I think for this one, like, because it kept being like Paul knew what he had to do, like he knew what this meant, and he knew like the vision, and like, so as a reader you're like, he knows what's going to happen but you don't. And I think that's a interesting way of creating tension for someone who just knows the future.
It's funny, other books also use like that phrase, like this character knew what they had to do. but in Dune's case, it's like literally, like
Yeah.
I think that's like that. That's a really good point. Like, you would think on paper, if I told you the book is about a guy who could see the future and is unstoppable and is invincible, you'd be like, okay. So the conspirators. I was joking about it before, but I do think it's actually really good that Herbert's like, okay, what could the conspiracy do? And it's like, oh, you need an annoying like philosopher to debate this guy into committing suicide. Like, I think that is so cool and like so smart of like from a plotting and like not technical writing in like the collegiate sense, but like the nitty gritty of writing standpoint. I think that is such a smart decision, because it's not like there's no like, I mean, it is kind of like that at the end, unfortunately, where there's like an assassin who tries to kill him, but instead of it being like a big weird like lightsaber fight with Fade Routha at the end of the first book, which I didn't feel like made any sense, it's like a cool debate or a compelling debate and conflict between two characters who are both trying to convince each other of like who they really are, and that is happening throughout it's a through line through the entire book and gets resolved at the end in a satisfying way. Like, yeah, I know that's saying something happens a whole book and gets resolved in a satisfying way sounds like a low bar, but listener, have you been listening to the podcast? I mean, it's really good when we stumble upon it, you know? Yeah. I love it.
And like it just seems more and more clear, like, oh, this is the stuff he's like trying to say and interested in. It's because there's a point. I just think it's funny. There was a point where they talk about Hitler because like,
oh yeah, I thought that was funny.
I don't think we haven't talked about that, where Paul was like, yeah, that's cute what he did. It's like 7 million people. I've killed 47 billion people.
Yeah,
cute for the time he lived in.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a reminder, because I feel like you can quickly forget that this is supposed to be our future. It's not like a different galaxy far away or anything. It's like I really like that part. Normally I feel like I hate that kind of thing, but I enjoyed it here.
It almost seems like, I don't know what you think about this. Like, for me, it felt alternately like, oh, that's an interesting choice to just say that. It like at one point seems like random and unearned. Like, we never see the planets, like the devastation on other planets is never like described in detail. Like, all we see is from like the on the ground POV of Paul on this planet, which I think that's also an interesting choice. Like, you know, he also hasn't seen the billions of people his actions have killed, you know? It's sort of like Oppenheimer, you know? He never saw the bombs go off in Japan. Right. Like, he just saw what he saw and then heard about everything. And so I think it's like it's interesting to think about it from that similar angle, where like he knows sort of intellectually and statistically like what his actions have led to, but like he has this weird emotional disconnect from it. He's like, I'm just trying to stay alive, you know?
Yeah. Well, doesn't he literally, is it the same part where they're talking about Hitler? He brings that up. I think Aaliyah, or no, Chani's like, you haven't really killed anybody, and he's like, yes, I have. It just hasn't been me like getting bloodied by it, but the deaths are all on me. Yeah, man, this, like, Paul is a much more interesting character in this book.
He's a character, I think.
Yes, he is a character. And I'm pretty sure this is not the last you see of Paul.
I mean, actually, I don't know.
I think in the next book, he is there's like a crazy prophet in the middle of the desert, and everybody's like, oh, who's that? And it's like,
oh, really?
Yeah, come on guys. But he's not like the emperor. He's just this he just is a religious sort of figurehead for the Fremen.
I was wondering what you thought, because I remember when we talked about the last book, you were like, you know, I think my two favorite characters in the first Dune book were Lady Jessica and Gurney Halleck, and they are not in this book at all.
they set up really early. They're like, Lady Jessica just writes you letters, and I 1,000% sure was like, oh, we're gonna get to her at some point, but nope, it doesn't happen.
Nope.
And Gurney Halleck, I was almost like, did he die in the last book and I forgot? Like, what happened to him? Is he in any of the rest of them?
Honestly, I have no idea.
I'm just gonna look it up because it's. I'm gonna Google why isn't Gurney. Yeah, it's the first thing.
Where is Gurney Halleck now?
He's with Lady Jessica.
Oh, I think I read this too, where like they're like romantically involved now, right?
Yes,
I think that's what happens.
I think you're right. But Lady Jessica, that's a real shame.
On
I
Caladan.
think. Yes, they are. But it's a real shame because she's like terrified of those kids, and that would have been if you're gonna make this book longer, that's how you make it longer. Is like Lady Jessica and Gurney Halleck.
She has to come to terms with the son she has created.
Yeah, they. Damn. That's funny. I can't believe I meant to bring that up, but I got so I got lost. I got melange running through my veins, Yeah, but I mean, all in all, Dune, this book is a lot better than the first one, but it's still, I don't know, man. It's not the best thing I've ever read.
It still has its Herbert isms.
Yeah, it does.
I think I had more so on this one, maybe because I was like sort of less clear about the details of the plot, but like you can't like just relax and read this book because because the point of view shifts are so intense. It's because almost like this is almost the right length for a book like this, because like I think there was a sentence or two where like you started one, and these are not long sentences. You started one half of a sentence in someone's head, and then you ended the sentence like in someone else's head. And like that, I think I found that a little disconcerting. I know people like talk about it as like third person omniscient, but like I was thinking about it, and like I feel like there's, even for omniscient, it's like either bad third person omniscient, or I was thinking about like, if is there another, can you call it like third person random, where it's like just randomly you're in random people's heads at random points, because it's not even consistent to like paragraph by paragraph, or like, oh, there's a break and now we get to see the conversation from this person's perspective. It really is all over the place.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up too because I'm happy you brought that up. I know you're right. It is tough to call. I like that third person random. I think that's good. Is this I feel like this is one of the only books of this sort of genre that is third person omniscient,
or like just in this very specific Dune way. Because I wonder if like maybe this was a very common way to write like pulpy sci-fi in the 50s and 60s, and then Dune got popular, and then more people read it and realized like, oh, this kind of doesn't work and is really confusing, and so then no one ever did it.
I think it might. I think it in the context and like lore of this book, with everybody going crazy because they're taking drugs 24/7, it feels almost purposefully confusing and overwhelming. But I am never the person to be like, maybe it's bad on purpose. Like, that's not no, you don't get a pass from me. I wanted to read this section here. There's a bit I like here. It's a pre-chapter thing. It's from Muad'Dib on Law from the Stilgar commentary. There exists a limit to the force even the most powerful may apply without destroying themselves. Judging this limit is the true artistry of government. Misuse of power is the fatal sin. The law cannot be a tool of vengeance, never a hostage, nor a fortification against the martyrs it has created. You cannot threaten any individual and escape the consequences. Now, when did Paul ever say that? When do you think he ever had the time or the knowledge to ever say that ever?
Well, you could interpret it as all these like commentaries and things that are in these epigraphs are just like people writing about what they thought and putting words in Paul's mouth after he's gone,
Oh,
like
interesting.
Same with like Irulan, like if you think about the pre-chapter headings of
that's a good point.
like everyone sees it because it's like this is him being emperor is the biggest, most devastating thing to ever happen in the whole universe. So of course everyone would have like opinions on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sort of like how history happens, I guess.
Oh, hey, also forgot to say this. One more plot thing is that the part of the conspiracy, the Tleilaxu, they're like, we're gonna make our own fucking spice, idiot, and we're gonna put it somewhere else.
Oh yeah, I think they get some spice off planet, or like some of the guild people.
They steal a worm.
Yeah, they steal a worm. Now I want a heist, sci-fi heist novel where these fish dudes try to steal a worm from out of the under the nose of Paul Atreides.
It's like weird Rogue One. Nice. Hell yeah.
Rogue One, but it's a worm. Rogue Worm.
Rogue Worm. Fish worm. Well, I know it's on the shorter side, but I feel like that's all I really have to say about Dune Messiah.
Yeah. Frank Herbert likes knife fights. That was another big takeaway from this book.
Yeah. Also, again, no shields with the knife fight. Because it wouldn't work. Oh, hey, here's something. You ever notice when they say shield wall, he's talking about like rocks? Like,
yeah.
It's not really shields, or it is a shield, or the shield is rocks.
So shields are like the tech that blocks stuff. The shield wall is like the rock formation outside of Arrakeen that like protects Arrakeen from storms, and that's what they blow up at the end of the last book.
Thank you.
So the sandstorm hits, so they can all attack it, so the ships can't escape.
Thank you. Because I swear I thought at one moment a real shield engulfed the city, in addition to the shield wall being a separate thing. So thank you. I was very confused until this moment.
And then we jump to the point of view of the shield wall, and we wonder what the shield wall is thinking.
Look how the shield wall weaves its spindly web.
All these wall-like conspiracies. It will build a wall across the whole planet.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Dune Messiah, if you read and liked the first Dune book, I tell you, you're gonna love this one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'd probably like the rest of them. I don't know anything about what's-his-face's books, his son.
I think they're widely panned by everyone in the Dune community as bad and you shouldn't read them.
Nice. Okay, well then that sounds like right up our alley.
They're like fan fiction-y.
Ugh.
Like, I think he's just cashing in on the fact that he was this famous guy's dad.
Damn, that
and
sucks.
people like don't like them and
he's like
say not
evil
to
Christopher
read them.
Tolkien. He's like the reverse Christopher Tolkien.
Yeah, but Christopher Tolkien kept writing like fanfics about Legolas or something.
Holy fuck. That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. When on this podcast, we've been obligated to read all of them.
And hey, that's a great segue into something I am very excited about, which is what hardcover hooligans will be reading next. We're leaving metals in the past. We're leaving warring planets and moons in the past, and we're leaving all the you Herbert heads behind because we are entering the world of Middle Earth.
Yep.
Finally.
I am excited.
Danylo, you've never read them, have you?
I've read The Hobbit.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that's good, because we are starting with The Hobbit.
Yes, that is the only one I've read before. And I've seen all the movies, and I've watched lots of lore videos.
Have you seen all the Hobbit movies?
I have seen all the Hobbit movies.
You poor thing.
I think I saw them all in theaters.
So did I, the day they came out.
Yeah.
Because I was alive when the movies came out. I and like a little boy. I watched the movies before I read the books, but I read The Hobbit before I saw the movies. And let me tell you, when that Hobbit movie came out, it was the first time in my life where I was like, the book is actually way better than the movie. And hey, I was right. And I'll forever be right.
That was me with Jim Carrey's Series of Unfortunate Events movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where, I read those books and I saw that movie and was like, the books are better.
You ever watch that? fuck Dune. We're talking about unfortunate events now. You ever watched that Netflix show? Was that good? I never actually saw it.
I started it. I don't know why I really don't like the show on Netflix. I recognize it's good and a faithful adaptation and it's well made. I think part of it is it has that those books are a big part of my childhood and I'm very specific.
Yeah.
I feel like the spirit of those books is something very specific to me, or the way I see the soul of those books. And I don't see that translated into the Netflix show, which is a very specific issue I have, I think, with them. And I think everyone who's watched them and has read the books also liked them.
Yeah. Well, Danylo, have you ever played the Series of Unfortunate Events video game?
I haven't played the video game, but I owned the board game.
Whoa! I didn't know there was a board game.
It's basically Clue.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Do you have to fight? Do you have to beat up bad guys?
I think everyone plays the three kids. You go room to room collecting clues, and then someone else plays Count Olaf, and he chases you through the rooms.
Oh, that's fun. So one of the players is the bad guy.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Well, folks, tune in to when we, in an audio platform similar to a D&D podcast, we play the Series of Unfortunate Events board game. You know what actually might be fun to do is somehow find a way to film and play the Dune board game.
I think that'd be great because we have a friend who has one.
Yep.
And it's a fun game.
And he likes Dune, I think, way more than either of us do.
That's
so that'd
true.
Be really... So it'd be us ripping into him because that's 2v1 the whole time.
My conception of I would love to read the other books at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I know nothing about Dune Chapter House. My impression of Children of Dune is it's just all about how horrible the children are.
Yeah.
At ruling. And then the third one, or the fourth one, God Emperor of Dune, is he's a worm emperor who can see into the future, which I think is awesome. Have you seen pictures of it?
No, I haven't.
Artistic interpretations of, I think it's it might be one of the children or one of the children's children. It's a big worm.
Ugh.
A worm guy.
Ugh. Anyways, one of them had to make love to a worm?
I think he did so much spice, and I don't know.
I don't really want to read Frank Herbert's worm sex scene if it is out there.
Dude, Leto the Second Atreides. I hovered over it, and it's a photo of James McAvoy. Oh, because he plays him in the miniseries in 2003.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot about that. I meant to bring that up too. Is that the first three of these were a miniseries that I did not know existed in the world until the other day when I was prepping.
Yeah, look up Leto Atreides II, and you'll find a lot of wonderful artistic representations of this worm emperor.
Ew! He looks kind of cute when he's sitting on his little throne here.
Now, if you thought Baron Harkonnen was fat...
Ugh. Oh, he's got hands. That's fucked up, man.
And I think the idea is he's even more powerful than and far-seeing than Paul. He's worried about the future of the human race. And he's hey, these billions of people have to die so that we can evolve as a species.
Well, he's just hardcore. He's not willing to take those steps, you know. Danylo, I'm gonna send you something. Hang on, I gotta find the way to do it. I found a great picture. I'm gonna send it to you on. Do you have Discord open?
I can. My Discord's downloading updates.
Oh boy. Well, whenever it opens, I sent you a pretty cool photo. You should check out.
Hey guy, what's with all these Discord updates, huh?
Hey, what are they updating? Because the call audio is not getting any better, I'll tell you that. Is that pretty good?
That's pretty funny. That's very tasteful and simple, but very funny.
All right, folks. Well, I'm sure you've got other stuff to do. So
this will not be in the episode.
We won't keep. Well, I don't know. It might be.
Anyway, we like to end every episode with 10 minutes of us looking at pictures independently.
If you are one of the lucky bastards who read along with us, read the entirety of The Hobbit.
Yeah.
You can do it. It's short. It's a kid's book.
It's fun.
It is fun. You can follow us on Instagram /Facebook at Hardcover Hooligans. You can also email us at hardcoverhooligans@gmail.com. But all of that will be in the description. And if you liked what you listened to today, leave a 5-star review, please. And if you didn't like it, just forget it ever happened. Move on.
Yeah.
And if you really didn't like it, I would not go listen to the Mistborn episodes.
And now, if you really, really didn't like it, you could stare into a nuclear blast until you go blind and walk into the desert. So, maybe consider doing that first before you leave a negative review.
Numbnuts. God, these people, man. These SAG-AFTRA members, huh? Jeez.
They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Pull themselves up by their MFAs.
Oh, yeah! He's burning them up! Yes, sir.